everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Between the Arcs.
Yeah,
Between the Arcs.
get around it.
And of course, you've got the jumper punch here. I don't have to mention who I am, but we've got SEN's very own Paul Sebastiani.
Hello, crew.
But we also have a very special guest.
Yes, we do. We have Goes Alright's very own. He does a whole heap of work on the socials, content creating. You can follow him at Caden McDonald on YouTube. Goes Alright on Spotify. Does a heap of stuff with AFL.
Is he the biggest name?
Yeah, it has to be.
He's
Content
got
creator.
to be. He's got to be. He's huge.
Well, he's the biggest name with regards to generic and Melbourne content, but we're the biggest name in the northern suburbs.
We're the northern suburbs.
Caden,
how are you, mate?
Hello, mate.
Lads, thanks for getting me on. It's an enormous week for our two sides, and I can't wait to rip in and chat about it.
Bloody oath.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge, man. What a week. What a week. All right. Do you want to, we were discussing just before the show. Do you want to just quickly get into some other stuff? Because this might.
At least into the game.
Before we go, because I don't know if you've seen our show, but we can't start the show, right?
Yeah.
Without having a bit of coffee and a bit of gin, all right?
A bit of medicine.
Wow,
So we always.
This is what we do on a what are we, a Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah.
Very nice.
A little bit of medicine with the coffee. Do you guys do this at home with the fam? A bit of espresso with some alcohol?
I think there's an old little recipe where like whiskey and honey and hot water can help with sore throat, but you blokes don't seem too sick. This seems quite recreational.
This is just standard just to get us started, mate. You follow Carlton, mate. This is like we've also got the heartburn tablets over there that we've been taking for the last 3 years, mate.
It's depressing, but we're
delicious.
good now. We've come good.
So cheers to the big game this week.
Cheers. To good podcasting, to good content, to good football.
Yeah.
Good football.
Yeah,
so let's go.
All right. Well, let's rip into it. Your boy Gus Brayshaw, thoughts, opinions. We won't go over it forever, but I feel terribly for him because he's such a bloody good player. He's so good.
Yeah, he is so good. He adds to the depth. But even like in the last few weeks of him playing midfield, I think in the back end of the season, he was really racking up the pill. And he's so versatile. So he can go head over it, ball style, not to the extent of Petrarca and Oliver, but he can play that bigger body role because of the size of the man. But he also has a little bit of class with his decision making, a little bit more so than the other balls that rotate through the midfield. So he's going to be a massive loss. As for the collision, it was one of the more unique collisions I've seen on a footy field. I think we spoke off air. I was pretty surprised he didn't get suspended, but I also probably didn't think that 3 weeks made a lot of sense. Like if it was a genuine accident, I thought 3 weeks would have been heavy-handed, but because of the rubric with the AFL, it literally couldn't be 1 week. It had to be 0 or 3. So I guess I want the best players playing out there. That's why I was seething that Angus Brayshaw won't be. Exactly. But it is what it is. We've got to move on because we've got a massive clash against your mob.
We've got a massive clash. And the reason that we're a bit surprised, let's be serious, man. It's Collingwood, man. I wish nothing but side, you know? So, unfortunately, one of their players is going to be playing, and we're not happy about that. But anyway, it's better that he's there, so when they get thumped out in the preliminary, we'll all be wrapped that they've got no excuses.
I completely agree. Unbiased, unchanneled.
No,
opinion.
and that's
completely agree.
That's it. And anything else on the?
Oh, look, I mean, I think I was shocked that he didn't get a couple of weeks, but it is what it is. Yeah. As you said, we've got a game to focus on.
Yeah, as I said, look, it was. I don't think he deserved 3 because to me he did go to smother it, but he did cause not only a concussion. He was out for like 2 minutes. This wasn't just a simple concussion. So you got to with your actions. You have to be penalised if you decide to jump up and you do cause something. I mean, you got to be penalised for it. And unfortunately, he's off.
What do you do? That's how it is now. So, all right, shall we get stuck into this game Friday night? Wowee, what a game it's going to be. What did you make of? And I've been harping on about the game that our boys played when was it? A couple of weeks ago. What round was it? 22? Was it round 22?
Somewhere, isn't it?
Round 23. When was
round 22.
Round 22. What did you make of it, Kados? Because it was a dour affair on the scoreboard, but mate, both teams were just. I think Bossy said it perfectly. It was two heavyweights just going blow for 12 rounds.
Yeah, and then David King said it looked like a preliminary final match, like the intensity, the tackling, the contest. I thought we should have been 4 goals down at quarter time. It lived inside your forward 50. And that's why I love our defense. We can absorb.
Yeah.
We can take the hits from the other team. And then when we find our legs again, we can really counter. But that was a game where, we didn't want it living down the back line for that amount of time, especially with how dangerous your forward line is. So I think it was something like 8 points to 14 or something. And I remember the soccer was on at the same time, and no one was really interested in the footy because
that's right, the soccer.
Because the Matildas were playing.
Doing my head in, mate, because I kept hearing this, and they kept standing up in front of me, and I'm going, mate, there's a game going on. You know?
Yeah. So it was almost carbon copy of the year before when Cozzy Pickett ended up. It's just two contest and defense teams that just go head to head for 4 quarters. It reminded me of the year before when we pinched it. It was like contest, defense. It was the middle of winter. It was about a similar time of the year that both these games happened. It was middle of winter. The ground was a bit wet underfoot. It's 2 contested sides that just went to war for 4 quarters. I don't know if we'll see that this week. Obviously, both contest and defense sides, but I think if it's 23 degrees and it's a picture perfect night, we might get to see some transition football and some end-to-end football, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's actually going to be a cracker of a night
I
and a
think
cracker
so.
of a day. So it's funny enough. I think the discussion leading into this week, Kados, has been Melbourne's forward line is not good enough. They haven't been able to score. They got all those entries against Collingwood. The efficiency has been terrible. But how many times do you see it and being part of it in media circles where an area or a specific area of the ground is lambasted by media and supporters, and then the week after it all clicks. So I think I do think Melbourne's forward line, and I think the opportunities that they do create going inside forward 50 will be good enough to win. But the forward line for your lads, it has to be an area of concern. Well, it is an area of concern. Does Petrarca go up there? Does Gawn go up there with the toe? What do you think is going to happen with regards to your boys?
Well, it's crazy. Supply is not an issue.
It's not.
The inside 50 numbers are insane. Like, we're getting 60, 65 inside 50s a week, keeping our opposition, Collingwood only got 30 or whatever it was. It was insane.
It was insane that the amount of 50s. I mean, seriously, I was cheering you all the way last week, but it was insane. Like, how many games do you lose when you're like 69 inside 50s to 30?
Or whatever it was.
37. Like, how many games do you lose? Like,
I think I've seen
real quality entries though. That's the thing. That's the question mark that has to be. Yeah. That's a question that has to be asked.
Potentially not. I don't think much of our ball movement, even if it did go deep, I don't think it was quality. So it was just sort of, it was sort of get it in deep, set up behind the ball. But when they've got like Darcy Moore and whatnot, they defended incredibly as well. So on one hand, we didn't go inside 50 well. We didn't have the personality to really make an impact, and also came up against some of the best defenders in the league. Our forward line, it's personnel-wise, it's an issue. So throughout the year, we'll have like a Jake Melksham and a Harrison Petty, and they'll play a role. They'll play a genuine role for us. And personnel-wise, you feel okay. It's just it's the way it's been brought in. And now it's sort of like the way it's been brought in. It's the method and it's the personnel. This is the most worried I've been for our forward line for a long time, because when we couldn't get Tommy Mack and Ben Brown right this year, we had Van Rooyen chipping away, kicking his 1 and 2, and he just competes really well. Like, he's probably the most physical forward I've seen us have since David Neitz, who really loves contact.
What a player. I love David Neitz, Katos.
Yeah.
Nice and Neitz, David Neitz.
Neitz.
He was honestly my favourite demon back in the day, mate. I loved him. Bloody loved him,
Neitz
mate.
and Lines at the time.
Hey, David Neitz was a champion, mate.
Just a great leader as well. So we've had like your Jack Watts and your Sammy Wiedemans who like I think you guys have had similar players come through the system, and even like I would sort of think like a Jack Watts at the time reminds me a little bit of Silvani. I know Silvani's had a better career than Jack Watts, but like a light framed forward who gives his all and is almost there. Like he almost quite makes it, and everyone really.
6 out of 10.
I like that.
Like that. But you're really rooting for him.
And
then we see a Van Rooyen who just like from day dot, like he's just got the ingredients, and you just got to mold the way he goes about it. So he did a job throughout the year, and then the best our forward line looked was when Petty was in it as well. Similar size to Van Rooyen, loves physical contact, loves to compete, can clunk a mark and kick a goal. A little bit rough around the edges, but we could work with it. So since then, Petty went down. We brought Malcolm in, and he was a revelation just to get us through the season. He's gone down. And then Van Rooyen's out. So, like in terms of tall forwards, it's like a real worry personnel-wise.
It is, and with our backline, you talk about your backline. I think our backline's held up all year. I mean, it's probably one of the better backlines. You know, like you got Wiedering and Newman's been. I think he should have been All Australian as good as he's been, and then Kemp's come along.
Kemp. You speak about revelations, Kados. Malcolm had been that for Melbourne, and it's no shock that as soon as he came out of the side, he heading into that Collingwood game. Everything just went to garbage for the centre for the Demons, and I think his link up and his hit up across high half forward has been he's been the outlet for Melbourne, and he's been a goal scorer too. So from our perspective, the revelation for us has been our backline and defence looked horrible in the first half of the season. Brody Kemp's coming alongside Jacob Wiedering, and both of those lads have just held their own down in the backline too. And I think that the one thing I look at coming into this game from our perspective is our people say, oh, your backline's too tall, but our talls are actually quite mobile and agile. And it's similar to what your lads are. May and Lever play tall, clearly. Yeah. But they've still got a bit of zip behind them as well, which is I think Melbourne has,
especially Lever.
Yeah, Melbourne has come up with the mold for the new tall defender, if that makes sense. It's the intercept, zipping off halfback as well, and being quick too. So I think all those blokes can play a little bit shorter if they need to, especially if Melbourne have got a bit of a smaller forward line. And that's just by force. That's just because of the injuries that have occurred for your boys. But what I was looking at is I think the way our midfield and your midfield stacks up, I don't think, and it might not turn out this way, but if we can limit the supply to your forward 50 with that forward line, that'll go like a long way to us. Really, I just don't see us conceding 69 inside 50s. It just doesn't seem, because our midfield are they're so alike, if that makes sense, contested hard ball players. Whereas you look at Collingwood, that's probably a little bit of a weakness of theirs. Yeah. So I think from that regard, that's probably an advantage to us. I don't know what you think about that, but I'm just looking at the numbers based purely around that, and it's probably advantage us in that way. But then again, the fact that we don't know what Melbourne's forward line is going to look like could be the ace up the sleeve for your boys.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that's frustrated me when we play Carlton, and I would put Brisbane, Collingwood and Geelong in this bracket as well, is we get stretched for height when we play those teams. So Brisbane have Harris Andrews in defence, the Big O. I think Jackson Payne or Jack Payne would be close to 200. And then their two forwards are 200 centimetres. So when we play the Lions, May and Lever look like medium-sized defenders next to Hipwood and Danaher. And then unless we bring like a Tomlinson in, they have to play on those talls. So like sometimes we'll play a smaller defense, and it frustrates me because I like that extra big body. Like it used to be Petty, and sometimes it's Tomlinson to give May and Lever a chop out when the height is such a disadvantage. And then it happens when we play the Blues. So I remember the last time we played you guys around the ground, from Kemp to Wiedering to Marchbank, and then you go forward. It's Harry, it's Charlie, and then you got two ruckmen. Like, you can get ascendancy around some of the marking contests. That's such a worry for me going forward. Like, I don't know how we plan for that, and there's smarter people at the footy club who work full time, like Goody and the lads, that probably have some answers. But in my head, I don't know how we go inside 50 this week, because it might be Petrarca, Tom McDonald, Joel Smith, and then just Smalls. So I'm not even sure Tom McDonald should play.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too. And you kind of, you're lucky, but the big H isn't playing this week, so there's one. That
he didn't play last time we played against you.
No, we didn't. But it would have been nice. It would have been nice this week. But so we're kind of now thinking about who's going to replace him. You know,
while Jack Silvani and Jesse Motlop are the likely blokes to come in for Martin, and
so it's going to be a bit smaller.
Like. So I look at this game, Katos, and I'm thinking to myself, I've taken the Carlton hat off, right? So I've looked at the game logically, looking at trying to compare, because I think you can compare both teams at the last game because it's so close. Yep. So you can get an idea as to the form of both teams, and then you look at what was on the line for both teams in that game. So your lads had to win for top four. It obviously didn't work out. It still worked out fine because you still made the four, but we had to win that game to essentially make finals.
Yep.
So it was not a case of, Melbourne have got nothing to play for, Carlton have got nothing to play for. All the motivation was there to play for. And we had three of our most important players. We had no Chera, no Walsh, and no McGovern in that game as well. So for mine, I look at that and say, naturally, you would think that Carlton gets some sort of incremental improvement out of those three players, whether it's 5 or 10% on the performance they put out against Melbourne last time. And then I look at the outs for your lads coming into this game compared to the last game, and I'm thinking, no Malcolm, no Van Ruin, no Brayshaw.
No Brayshaw,
That's massive. And we're missing Martin, who's been an incredible part of that half-forward line for us. I think Silvani's an ample replacement. Maybe not as good as him, but
I think he'll do the job. If he comes in, he'll do the job. So does he make you feel better there?
I'm just looking at this logically. I'm looking at it logically. I'm just seeing, and that's what Melbourne would be looking at as well. Surely they have to be.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when we made finals in 2018, it was just this celebration. Like, everyone sort of wanted to see the D's do okay. We hadn't played finals for 12 years. It was this celebration. And then we go and win the flag, and everyone was quite supportive then. And in the last 12 months, I'm starting to feel what like a Richmond or a Collingwood or a Carlton supporter would feel like, where we're just getting absolutely harpooned in the media. The media's out for our coach. The supporters are copying it. And there is this pressure that this generational Melbourne Football Club side can come to 4 MCG finals in 2 consecutive years and not win one would be a legacy tarnisher for this core group. Now, maybe that's a little bit extreme, and maybe I'm a little bit emotional there, but I think I don't think losing is an option. Like, I think it will be really bad if we can't get up. But in saying that, Gorney's walking around with a broken toe. Clary's knee's sore. We've got so many outs. I saw Swamp on Twitter put a list of games missed by injury, and the D's are on 900, and I think the Collingwood are like 200, but we've got the most games missing at the moment at this time of year.
Kills you.
We're going to have to dig deep. So I like when I tune into Simon Goodwin, and I like how prickly he's been in the last couple of weeks. I like that he's sort of turning into it. He's turning into a bit of a Chris Scott, where he just gives little barbs here and there. Fuck it, why not? Like I
like it.
We've been too robotic for years. Like, I like the emotion. But Simon Goodwin, middle of the week, goes, we're quite excited, and maybe he has to say this, but he goes, we're quite excited by the creativity and the mix that we can bring. So I think the obvious trump card is Petrarca stands in the goal square for 80% of the game. But talking about your tools and your intercepts, it's like, how do we get it to him? Or how do we get it to the ground when we get it in there? So I'm excited by it, but we could walk out of the MCG on Friday and I go far out. Like, the weight of numbers, the losses to our key forwards was an issue, or I could walk out and go far out. Like it opened up an opportunity for us to bring something new and we pull it off. So I don't know how it's going to go.
They're the two ways, aren't they? I think with Petrarca as well, he got named on a half forward in the AA squad. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got named at a half forward. The only thing that I reckon Goody would look at is saying, well, what are we going to lose in our midfield if we drop him back to the forward line? Because our midfield's, mate, it's, Chera, Walsh, Cripps, Hewitt
Walsh
as well.
was-
So what do you do there?
You're robbing.
What is it?
Robbing
Peter to pay Paul.
Peter to
What
pay
do you
Paul.
do?
Yeah.
Well, Sam Walsh on Friday night, he was everywhere. Like, it was incredible to watch.
It's like he came in. It's like he doesn't miss a game. Like
he doesn't miss a
He
beat.
misses 6 games, come back, and it's like he hasn't missed a game.
He's like us three here, mate. We're us three. This is the consummate professionals, mate. We just
Bloody
lock
hell.
up and shut out.
And also Chera, like he was a bit slow to get into the game, but then the last 3 quarters, he's been huge for us, Chera, And then Cripps, he didn't have a huge game, but then when you look at his numbers, he was tough around the ball. He kicks that big goal, So, like the midfield is one of our strong points. It's going to be tough for you guys. But you got Gawn, like, and I know he's got his toe. I don't know how much.
They all play through stuff. They all play through stuff. They all do throughout the year. I wouldn't be too worried about it.
The thing I'm worried about is De Koning. He halved that contest last time he played. Like, that was almost one of his better games.
That's right. It was.
I hate when there's like, if Pitney was your number one ruck against us, I'd be a little bit worried because he's a goer. Like, he will bash into Gawn for 4 quarters. And I know that there's sort of, there's talk around how, he's not the best ruckman in the league or whatever, but he's someone who, like, when we play a Carlton, I know that Gawn's got a pretty honest night ahead of him. And to add De Koning into that mix, who can jump on Gawn's head, and now he's taking his contested marks, and he's looking quite damaging. To have 2 of them, I think it's a long night for Gawn. So I don't know if we've just put a line through Grundy, and I don't know sort of how I feel morally.
That's the big one. Grundy, like, he's like, I don't know what's going on there, but then you think, like, I think you should have brought him in for Collingwood. Like, I just
100%. Yeah.
So, because I don't know, man, he can ruck. He does all right in the ruck, and you can chuck him forward. So, do you think he's a chance this week?
Well, so I saw a tweet middle of the week, and it said bringing Brodie Grundy in as a forward can't be as bad. Like, can't be a worse option than having Tommy Mack play forward at the moment, because he's cooked. His feet are cooked. He's had like foot issues for like 18 months now. And I love the great man, and, maybe he has a preseason, comes back better next year, or maybe this is sort of the start of the end. But I don't understand how, like, Brodie Grundy, the size of the man, just putting his hands up, like, you don't have to clunk it. Like, just start ruck tapping in the goal square. Just stand and palm it down. Like, all you have to do is bring it to ground.
He's going to need to take one of our defenders. One of our defenders are going to have to take him, no matter if he clunks the ball or not.
Well, I think it's also the case of, and I reckon Melbourne would be looking at it this way too, is that our 2 rucks, as you said, mate, they're going to be a problem. So Melbourne maybe just have to pay respect to that and say, well, we've got to play 2 rucks as well, because we need to equalise what Carlton are going to do. That they might be trying to stop us, but our frame of mind from a coaching point of view and from a club point of view would be like, well, we're not here to stop Gordon.
Yeah.
We're here to beat him. We're here to make him accountable and make him have to think about his game as well. Then I think that came to the fore in parts last time the 2 teams went head to head. So it's going to be a fascinating case of what has Melbourne learnt from the loss last time we played each other, and the different personnel they're going to throw on the ball and around the ground and in that forward line, and what has Carlton learned from that game as well. I mean, and the way I'm looking at this game is, I don't think there is as much pressure on us as there is on your boys because of the whole
Oh, for
straight
sure.
sets thing, the whole premiership
100%.
thing, and the talk of the coach and everything.
Of course.
For us, it's not a free hit or anything like that, but we don't. I think we've done what we need to do, and now
Exactly.
whatever we do, we do beyond is
It's a
If
bonus.
we win, it's going to be a great, like we make
Yeah.
a preliminary. If we lose,
it's a building block.
we're
for
just
us.
going to turn around and say, well, they did finish top 4. What do you want
Yeah.
from us?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we've kind of got a bit of an out
The
there.
players and
Yeah.
coaches, none of those would be thinking that because they've got that elite mindset where we go as far as we can. But from my perspective, even in this last 6 to 8 week block, as a supporter, I haven't felt the pressure on the club or for them to perform as well. And I think that's been a characteristic of when we've done our shows is that we haven't been edgy, we haven't been prickly, we haven't been. And I think that's a replica and a sign of what's actually going on at our club where they're just going out there and playing footy.
Yeah. And I think that's been the big change for us is I think since the Gold Coast game, we just went out there and started playing footy and not being too stressed out. And then every quarter has been a learning curve and we just keep building that confidence. And now we're here in a semi-final, and like you guys, but they've got like a whole bunch of experience too. You know what I mean?
So you can't underestimate your lads, Kados.
That's going to be.
They go into the game as favourite with the bookies, whatever that means. It doesn't really mean a lot, but I guess you've got to respect that area. But it's a home game for your lads too. And
home game. How about that? It's your home game.
Something like that. I mean, and your lads know to peak at this time of year. So that the performance against Collingwood, I think, is good enough to beat a lot of teams.
Oh yeah.
It's just if you can handle that forward line movement, that's the query as well. So I don't. What do you think the ins and outs are going to be for your lads? Because it's tough. They're saying that Daniel Turner might get a game.
Oh my god, yeah, jeez. I love Disco, but geez, 3 games into his career as a backman going forward, that would be concerning. I felt like our game against Collingwood was one of our sort of most fumbly, mistakes-ridden performances in a long, long time. And then I walked away thinking, if we play 15 other teams, we probably still win that. So it was a really confusing one for us in terms of personnel. Man, we need a tall bloke to stand inside the forward line and compete. And
where are we going to find this?
And we're looking at
you need the heartburn tablets.
We're looking at Josh Shackey, Daniel Turner, when Brodie Grundy's sitting there. Like, I just don't understand how it's not a thought. And the last, I reckon, so Max Gawn was injured earlier in the year, and I reckon 7 of their games they played, or at least 6, were in torrential downpours. When we played Essendon in Gather Round, it was pissing down. We played Port Friday night, lost by 4 points, was pissing down. We played Geelong on the Thursday, pissing down. GWS in Alice Springs, it was torrential. And then I reckon the game against you boys was, I think it was wet throughout the day, but I sort of think, man, so maybe they've played 15 or 16 games together, and at least 6 of those you probably cross out the big man having a performance. So they played 10 games together, and I think of Tom Hawkins and Jeremy Cameron did not wax when they first played in the same forward line for that first season. May and Lever, it's not like they didn't work, but they weren't anything special for the first 2 years on our list. So as much as he probably doesn't want to be playing VFL and he is going to pack up and leave, it irks me that it's called a fail after 10 rounds. I would love another preseason. Gorney has to start giving up a bit of the role a little bit more because he's going to be 32 soon. So I think it's a joke that Brodie Grundy's playing VFL because he's too good for VFL. But I think giving up on it after a year is really frustrating. I would love to see him come in, but there's one part of me that, and this is very unprofessional for me to say, but we need Brodie Grundy. I think we need a tall bloke to compete this week for a semi-final to keep our season alive. But he, as a contracted player, and we're all understanding of it, has chatted to Port and chatted to Sydney and is going. So there's a part of me that goes, we've got someone on our list that we could bring in, but if he's already going, is it a bit of like a very stubborn, probably childish, unprofessional decision to not even think of him for this week?
Well, if your mind's not fully committed to the cause here, how are we going to trust that you are fully committed to the cause when you cross the white line? It's not. I actually think it's and I reckon Goody's doing I reckon he's doing the right thing by the football club, to be honest. It's probably a little bit of push and pull as well, because he hasn't been. I don't think he's been shown the utmost faith
for sure
since he's got there. So he's probably thinking, if they're not showing me faith, well, I may as well move on and get ahead of the curve. So it's a little bit of toing and froing.
I think we're really mature about it as well. Like, if it genuinely hasn't worked, I think the Melbourne Footy Club will help him find a new home, and there won't be bad blood. Yeah. And he apparently is the most beautiful, professional, committed bloke you could ever ask for. So if he is named this week, I'm pumped and I'm excited. But a part of me starts going conspiracy mode. Like, is he just not an option? Because You're already gone, mate.
You're already gone, mate. Hey, just talk about him just for a second. Has that been the most amazing signing a 7-year, $5 billion contract, right? At Collingwood. You think about it, it was the biggest contract ever. Then, like, what is it, a year later?
Gone.
Goes to Melbourne, still on $7 billion, right? Can't get a game, and now looking at his third club. I've never heard of anything like that.
It's crazy.
Well, Collingwood fans, they've been sinking the boots in this week, and they're up and about because they won, and they won fair and square. But I've seen a lot of
check him out. They won fair and square.
Better team on the night. So I've seen a lot of look at the way you've treated Brodie Grundy, and I was like, he couldn't get a game for you guys last year. Like, he played VFL. He played VFL last year, and he's playing VFL this year. But we're like treating him really poorly.
That's Collingwood, mate. Don't worry about that. Didn't you know, man, the sewer used to run through Johnson Street, from Carlton all the way down. Mate,
it still does, doesn't it?
It still does. They're rubbish. Hey, I'll give you another scenario. Not that you're going to win this week, but I'll give you another scenario, right? You beat us, you make it to a grand final with Grundy, and you win the premiership with Grundy in there. Then what do you do?
Well, then he's a premiership player, and we want the first couple of first rounders from the Swans.
Yeah. All of a sudden, then he's worth big money there.
Brutal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Imagine so if the Blues win, they go to the Gabba full of confidence, get the job done. Pies versus Blues, granny, huge. But if the D's win, do a job at the Gabba, the Pies and the D's could be the spiciest build-up to a granny we've seen in a long time.
It'll be huge after what happened with Brayshaw and
absolutely
and all that. Absolutely. That could be whatever happens. If it goes up against Collingwood, mate, it's just gonna be a huge build-up.
What is Gasso? Is he? I saw he was back jogging and stuff. Is he going to get up? Or is he okay, or what's going on with him?
I'd be so surprised if we played again. If we win through and play in a grand final, I'd be so surprised if he played. Like, with his history and considering he was lifeless for 2 minutes, like, I've never, we've seen people like that out on the footy field, but his legs were crossed and he was unconscious for 2 minutes. Like, it was so bad. I don't think he'll play again this season, but I think we've jumped the gun on retiring him. Like, I think
let's just relax and let's get through the year. Like, take it easy, man. Like, let's see what happens.
Who's going to replace him this week? Is it going to be Jordan, or will they go down the Harms path?
Nah, I reckon it's James Jordan, because he's just like the best role player ever. Like, he just well, that's such a massive statement. I don't know why I went like ever. Like, think of role players, James Jordan.
Exaggeration.
Think about 150 years of football. Think ever best role.
Oh, geez. He comes in and he's just like ready-made, understands the game plan, plays his role. He's someone who maybe by boot can make a couple of mistakes, but when he's in and around the contest, if he needs to get tackled and hold it in, he will. I despise players who, if there's a pack of opposition around them, just tap it along or keep the ball alive.
He's exactly like me with regard. I can't stand that. As soon as that happens, I just
lock it in. Get another stoppage. You're a good stoppage side.
That's why I was starting to get sick and tired of the whole Dow in theory, because when he gets, he can't. Those midfielders, you want them to be able to take the contact and not be able to cough the ball up. And if they are going to get rid of the hands, make sure that it's a handball that's actually meaningful.
Yeah,
of course.
Rather than coughing the ball up, mate. I can't, that's a pet hate of mine. I can't stand.
So, like a James Jordan for a young player, he comes in as a qualified tradesman. Like he knows what he's doing. So I'm comfortable with him coming in, and I'm comfortable with Tom Sparrow taking the leap and probably playing a lot of midfield time. He put our team on his back in the third quarter last week and kicked a crucial goal. And it was a coming of age moment. Like we saw Cozzy, Trent Rivers, Tom Sparrow, that next rung of players that are 22, 23 sort of put their hand up and say, hey, it's not just down to Petrarca and Gawn. Like we can actually have a bit of an impact here, which really got me up and about. But it's probably James Jordan who, I'm quite comfortable with. And then in the forward line, if we do need a connector, Charlie Spargo's been playing in the twos and he hits targets for fun. It's just he doesn't get the ball enough. So Charlie Spargo will have 12 touches, but he's great. Like his kick inside 50 is the link-up kick, but you can't have 12 touches. Like we need you getting it 18 to 20 times.
Yeah. Well, we're similar with the role players. I mean, we've been ranting and raving about them for ages, and that's been that's been the reason we've been able to make that leap into the top 8 and winning a final, because we've had blokes that their floors have come up. Our ceiling is, we know who we've got. Charlie, we've got Wiedering, we've got Cripper, we've got Walsh, we've got Cher, all these blokes who we know are at this level. But in that final, who was it? It was Matty Cottrell. It was Nick Newman, who's no star, but because he's been so consistent for the last 2 seasons, he's turned into it.
It was Fogarty.
As well, leading tackle getter on the ground. So you speak about these role players. It's been the lesser lights, the names who don't get front page and back page news that have been doing the job for us every week. And ultimately that's what's going to win you finals and win your grand finals.
It's your bottom 10 players. Like we've got a show on Sunday, Blue Sunday, with 79 premiership player Peter Brown comes on every week. And he always says that, mate, it's your bottom 10 who win a premiership. It's not your top 10, So we need those role players to do a job. But talking about the Blues, right? Yeah. So who's going to come in for us?
For us, it'll be Martin Motlop Martin for Motlop, and it'll be Mackay for Silvani. That's the.
And obvious. What about Akers? Is he he's looking all right? Because he did hurt his
shoulder. He was running around with his wing clipped. It was remarkable.
I'm telling you, so much respect for the guy, man. Like he's been a warrior, that especially the second half of the year, man.
Yeah. Well, I think Melbourne and Carlton place such an emphasis on the wing role.
Yeah.
You look at what your lads do with, Brayshaw can go through there. Langdon's one of the best wingers in the competition.
Yeah.
Jordan can go through there as well. And then with our boys, we've got 3 who rotate through. So, 3 that rotate through at any given stage. So we've had Akers, we've had Cottrell, we've had Hollands, who didn't play last week, who was stiff to be omitted.
Yeah.
Walsh can rotate through there. Doherty can rotate through there. So I think the wing roles in this particular game are just going to be so crucial, especially given the fact that we're going to have a nice day. Transition's going to be a thing in this game as well. And I think the skills are going to be up too. So I love the fact that both 2 teams have such a big emphasis on the wing role. And Langdon's it, mate. He may not get the ball 30 times a week, but from a wing perspective, he's one of the best in the comp.
We always said that
these young fellas can model off. He's a bloody good footballer. Wing roles are going to be crucial this week, mate.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of what Langdon. Like I see a lot of Langdon in Ollie Hollands, like the way he gets back and defends. like for years, I'd watch, this is going back 10, 12 years, but I'd watch the Melbourne footy side where.
How old were you then? Five or six?
No, I would have been like 15, 16. And we're winning wooden spoons. And
hey, we can shake
Don't
hands.
worry, mate. We can shake hands.
And I'd watch this team just get obliterated on the park. And Paul Roos came in and he talked about two-way running midfielders. And he goes, we're going to be the best two-way running team. And we ended up getting Bernie Vince into the footy club. And I remember going to games and I'd never seen a midfielder run from the forward line and sprint back to help out the defence the way Bernie Vince did. And now it's just a staple of our side. And what I really love about Langdon is he is sometimes the last man on the line in defence. Like Ed Langdon is like smothering and spoiling and getting in the hole. And when I watch Ollie Hollands, he does the exact same thing at such a young age.
They're freaks, man. And I'm telling you, like I've over the last couple of years, I'm thinking like the wing is the most important.
One of
the most important positions, man. Like you got to know how to play it, and you've got to put some Ks. And our wingers do all of them. They all do.
Cottrell notched up 17.6 kilometres last Friday night, which is
far
just
out.
insane.
And kicked a couple of goals.
And you mentioned too, like Langdon ends up in the full back square, but he also ends up he kicked one. I think did he kick the first goal for the Demons in the game last time we played against each other? I'm certain he got forward into the goal square and got on the end of one early in the game. And you look at what Cottrell and Akers were able to do in that game against Sydney as well. They've taken marks in defence, and then they're flicking themselves up the other end of the field and providing pressure up forward as well. So that two-way running it's going to be huge in this game too, because I think the weather, as you said, I don't think it's going to be that stoppage after stoppage after stoppage. Brand. I think there's going to be a bit of flow in this one.
Do you I think the weather's going to be huge, right? Like, do you ever like think, I wish it snows? Because you would kill it if it snowed, wouldn't you? Like your players wouldn't even have to take off their snow boots or anything.
Nor would the supporters.
I don't mind if it snows as long as it doesn't rain. We can't win in the rain. So,
where did the snow thing come from, by the way? And Melbourne, where was
I reckon it's just because of the MCC and being rich and
like Range Rovers and like
it's bloody expensive to get to the snow.
It is, mate.
Well, I think that was the whole thing. Because we were horrible for ages, so I think it was like low crowd attendance. Where are all these Melbourne supporters? Oh, well, they're from the MCC. They've gone up to the snow. They've taken the family to the snow.
It's right. I love
it. It's such a funny stigma or whatever it is.
The cheese board and wine, I get I completely get, but the snow
because it's expensive, man. Like try us from the northern suburbs, we could never go to the snow.
I went to the snow once in my life.
Yeah.
Once in my life, I've been to the snow. Maybe I'll go back.
I love it.
Did you like it?
Yeah. Do you go to the snow? You go snow. You probably got like a chalet there or something.
The helicopter
up.
I went to the snow once on Outer Edge, like a camp, and I loved it. But I came home and I was just sick for a week because when you're out in the snow, like you're getting fatigued and you're not drinking water and you're not eating food because you're distracted by like the activities. And I got home and I was just absolutely wrecked. But never been back since. I might have to go middle of next year.
I used to go. I'm actually a pretty good skier. I skied for I should be a Melbourne supporter, mate. But the thing is with the snow, what's funny about the snow is you go to the snow, right, and then you cover yourself up completely. But you don't ever want to touch the snow because it's cold, mate. So when you fall, you don't want snow on your hands. You know what I mean? But so
you get sunburnt too. You got to be careful.
You got to be careful. Anyway, so that'll be it's going to be a good night, Friday night, big crowd, mate, and the crowd, mate. I can't believe how quick the tickets sold out.
Sold out. How'd you go with your seating and all that sort of? Will you be there, or are you doing a live viewing or something?
Nah, I'll be there. I've struggled the last couple of weeks to go MCC because it's 90,000 plus. Last year when we went and it was like versus Brisbane and Sydney and it was only like 70,000 that we're going to go because it was against an interstate side. yeah, I could bring 4 guests in and whatnot, but this year I haven't been able to. So I've pulled the trigger with one of my best mates who does content as well, Connor Rogers, who's a massive Blues man, and then his dad is as one-eyed Carlton supporter I've ever met. So I'm going to be sitting with both of them.
Get him on the couch there.
I'll be there in the flesh. And like what I said this to Terry, I caught up with Terry earlier today, and I spoke about how, you see on Twitter, back-to-back sellouts that the D's have been involved in, but obviously it's with 2 of the biggest teams in the competition. And the other supporters are saying, or Melbourne supporters had nothing to do with this. And I go, well, I understand that Carlton and Collingwood are massive, massive supporter bases, but I think having like a worthy opponent in the Melbourne Footy Club is what makes it a big spectacle as well.
Yeah, of course. Naturally.
Of course. Listen, you're definitely going to bring it from 90 to 95,000.
Oh, it's going to be massive.
No, it's going to be huge, and we'll be there, of course, man. We don't miss out on any game.
Yeah, awesome.
It's going to be huge, man. Last thing, of course, you're going to predict Melbourne.
Yeah.
But give me 2 things. I want to hear the score or the margin, and what's going to be the headline the next day.
Ooh.
So I've been talking this into existence.
I love it.
So, like, it probably will be an arm wrestle. It probably will be by a kick, but I don't want to put that into the universe. So, if we, on expected score, should have beaten the best in the comp in Collingwood by 18 points, then I reckon we can professionally get this done on Friday night by 20 points, and I reckon the headline will be Cozzy Pickett wins it for the D's. In terms of, he's pretty close to putting it together last week. He's starting to really own the big stage. So I reckon he could kick 4+.
Ooh.
Adam Saad's pretty good though, so I'm not sure.
Probably was his best game.
Yeah, he was exceptional.
He played really good. Oh, I like that. 20 points.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm saying, I said, I actually had a caller call up the station, SEN, a couple of nights ago. Wayne Hawthorne, he's a big Melbourne man, and he said, I think if there's a winning margin, I don't think it's going to be close. He thinks it's going to be a 4 or 5 goal type job.
Like one team breaks.
Yeah, I think that could be the case. Look, obviously I'm going to say it's going to be the Blues. But as I said, I'm looking at it logically, saying that the ins we get from the last time we played your boys compared to your outs just has me thinking, well, that 4-point margin could be a little bit more than what it is. I'm saying it could be the 4 or 5 goal margin. That's what I'm saying. Right. That's what I think it'll be.
And the headline?
The headline will be straight set disaster.
He's been thinking about it. I love it.
Oh, we can't possibly lose 4 MCG finals after not seeing the flag.
This is not me being patronising, because I hate that shit. I hate that stuff. But
yeah.
What you've got to be as a football club, you look at a football club like Geelong, you look at a football club like Sydney, you look at what even what Brisbane has done over the last couple of seasons. Sustainable success is what you want, right?
Yeah, of course.
Making finals, making top 4 and top 5 and top 6 on a consistent basis over a prolonged period of time gives you the best chance to win a premiership, regardless of whether you come out in straight sets last year and this year or whatever it may be. You've got to give yourself a chance to get there.
Of course.
Year in, year out. And regardless of what happens this year with both teams are good enough to improve in the off-season and go again next season. So it's not – I don't think it's a massive disaster for both teams either way, regardless.
Let's just worry about the disaster Melbourne going to cop this week.
What's yours?
Mine is easy. I said it's a defensive game. I still think it's going to be close. It's going to give me another heart attack this week. I think on the show I said like 3 points or 4 points.
Okay.
I think the headline's going to be simple. It's going to be Carlton reserve a place in the preliminary. There we go. That's what I reckon. I can see that. So that might be the headline the next day. Yeah. So,
very intriguing. Very, very intriguing. We're looking forward to it.
No, that's good.
What's the crowd prediction before we wrap up?
I reckon it'll beat our game last week. I reckon 93 will come out.
Yeah. I'm saying 97.
He reckons
Oh my
97.
God.
I'll
I
say
reckon about
97 because of the weather. I think it's going to be
Yeah,
a cracker
good
and
call.
everyone's going to get out.
92-0-26.
That's all it was last week.
That's right.
He reckons it's going to be the same.
Yeah, so I reckon it's going to be a huge crowd regardless. The sun's out. I reckon everyone's going to be out having a few beers before the game.
Bloody oath.
Come down to the game and it's going to be huge. Yeah.
Yep,
So
good
much
stuff.
fun.
Where can we find all your, what do you got? You got Goes All Right on Spotify. Your YouTube channel's Caden McDonald.
Yep. So yeah, the
So
best
we
place
can-
to find me is probably on YouTube, just Caden McDonald,
Yep.
or across the socials as well. If you just type my name, you should be able to find me.
Yeah. of
Just
course.
Google it.
Just Google it, mate. He'll come straight up there. Yeah,
Just
that's
Google
it.
it.
No, perfect. Yeah.
Kados, appreciate it, mate. Made the best team win on Friday night. And yeah, mate, we're looking forward to it. This is what footy's all about.
That's it.
Yeah,
Fans
awesome.
getting together, having a yarn about it, and away we go on Friday, mate. Appreciate it.
Nah, lads, I really appreciate you getting me on. I have been feeling the pressure, but Simon Goodwin says pressure is a privilege, so I'm trying to embrace
Yeah,
that. Cannot wait.
Exactly.
Cannot wait for Friday night. It feels good to be somewhat relevant, even though people are taking the piss out of your side. And I'm pumped. I can't wait. And it should be a ripper. Thanks for having me on, though.
Good be
Hey,
words,
listen,
mate. You could
if
be a
you-
St Kilda supporter.
Well, that's it. Now, listen, man, if people are going for you and your team, it means you're doing all right. So that's
Yeah,
why they're
good
going
call.
for you, mate.
Good call.
So
All the
that's
best,
it.
lads.
If
All
they
right.
come for you personally as well, mate, just let us know.
Yeah, we'll let
Yeah.
them
Fix them up, mate.
Fix them up,
If you're the
man.
Northern Suburbs
Northern
contacts,
suburb,
mate,
we'll fix them up. You saw what we did to that St Kilda supporter all week,
Paul
mate.
Marshy.
Paul Marshy, mate. He's gone into hiding. The ball. All right.
Thanks, Kados.
Thanks,
Beautiful,
brother.
lads.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so
guys.
much.
Go Blues.